Recently unearthed footage of Snoop Dogg and Tupac has sent shockwaves through the hip-hop world. Rare clips that were never meant to see the light of day.
Even when he played Hit 'Em Up the song, I didn't like the song.
Did you feel like it was
I didn't
too
like
much?
it.
Right.
I didn't like it.
Clips that were never meant to see daylight, footage that doesn't just question what we knew about their friendship, but completely rewrites the story of Tupac's final days. When investigators traced where this mysterious video came from, the truth left everyone stunned. For decades, fans believed every piece of Tupac's last chapter had already been told. Every photo, every interview, every rumor dissected to death. But suddenly, out of nowhere, an unreleased video surfaced online showing Tupac and Snoop together after the date the world believed Tupac was gone. At first, people dismissed it. Another deepfake, another hoax. But when experts began breaking it down frame by frame, strange details appeared, familiar voices, natural body language, and settings too specific to fake. Something about this footage felt real. Too real. In hip-hop history, few bonds have fascinated the world like Tupac Shakur and Snoop Dogg, two West Coast icons, both born in 1971, who defined an entire generation. Yet what many never realized is that their story wasn't just about music, it was about loyalty, mentorship, and brotherhood. This newly uncovered footage doesn't just show artists, it shows family. It paints a raw, human picture that challenges everything the media made us believe for nearly 30 years. Because the truth is, Snoop and Tupac's bond ran far deeper than the headlines ever showed. It was a brotherhood that stood tall in the chaos of 90s hip-hop, even as the world around them tried to rip it apart. And now, with rare clips pulled from old MTV archives and personal vaults, we're seeing their connection in a light we've never seen before, a light that changes everything. We thought we knew about their final months together. So let's go back to where it all began. The year was 1993, the place a rap party for poetic justice in Los Angeles. Snoop Dogg, fresh off the success of Doggy Style, was already a rising legend. But that night, one unexpected moment would change the direction of his entire life forever.
I finally got a chance to meet Pac in 1993 at a rap party for poetic justice in LA. And on that night, Pac passed me my first blunt.
You're probably thinking, a blunt? That's the big moment? But hold on. Because this wasn't just about smoke, it was about symbolism. When Tupac passed Snoop that first blunt, he wasn't just sharing a way to roll, he was passing down a mindset. A whole different kind of energy. That one moment would shape Snoop Dogg's identity forever. The calm, unbothered, laid-back style that became his signature. And Snoop himself admits it. That first blunt from Tupac didn't just change how he smoked. It changed who he became.
That's right. Tupac is the one that got Snoop Dogg smoking blunts. You see, I was a zigzag man before that shit.
But this moment wasn't really about smoking at all. It was about vision, Tupac's vision. Because even back then, Pac saw something in Snoop that Snoop hadn't yet seen in himself. Potential, power, purpose. That belief, that constant push from Tupac for Snoop to rise higher, would become the heartbeat of their entire friendship. Pac wasn't just a collaborator. He was a mirror, showing Snoop the version of himself he didn't even know existed. Fast forward to 1995. Tupac's locked up, the future of his career hanging by a thread. But while most people saw an ending, Snoop saw a beginning, an opening that could change everything.
And then, in 1995, I told Suge Knight, I said, Suge, get Pac out of prison, have him come join our team at Death Row Records, you know, the most unfuckwittable record label of all time.
When Tupac finally walked out of prison and joined Death Row Records, something powerful sparked to life. It wasn't just music, it was chemistry, fire, and destiny colliding. Two artists at crossroads in their lives found more than just a creative connection. They found brotherhood. Tupac's raw intensity met Snoop's effortless cool, creating a contrast so electric it would shape West Coast hip-hop forever. When they teamed up on two of America's most wanted, from Pac's All Eyes on Mia, the first double album in hip-hop history, the result wasn't just a hit. It was an anthem, a declaration. West Coast royalty had arrived, but what makes the newly surfaced footage truly shocking isn't just the nostalgia. It's what it reveals, the side of their relationship that fans never got to see. Because behind the music, behind the fame, there was a bond that ran deep, one built on love, loyalty, and real-life brotherhood. When Snoop's first son, Corday, was born in 1994, Tupac wasn't just a guest. He became family. Imagine this, Snoop in the booth recording Tha Dog Father, while Pac's outside the studio feeding Snoop's newborn McDonald's fries, laughing, giving advice, just being Uncle Pac. Even Snoop admitted, Tupac was more of a father in those moments than he was. He taught Snoop balance, how to be present, even in the middle of chaos, and Pac's influence didn't stop there. He even pushed Snoop to lock in with his high school sweetheart, Shant Brodus, the same woman Snoop's still married to today. That wasn't industry advice. That was heart. That was family. Now, let's talk about that rare footage that's resurfaced, the one that shows their friendship before everything fell apart. It's from February 22nd, 1996, weeks after. Snoop was cleared of a murder charge that nearly ended his career. In the clip, less than a minute long, Tupac and Snoop are outside Monty's Steakhouse, Death Row's go-to spot for celebrations. There's no acting, no music, no lights, just two brothers smiling, relieved, free, sharing a quiet victory before the storm. It's moments like this that remind us what their bond really was. Human, pure, and real before fame and fear started, tearing the world around them apart. But then came the behind-the-scenes footage from two of America's most wanted. Shot right after Pac's prison release in late 1995, it captured more than a music video. It captured history being made. Pac in a crisp white shirt, Snoop suited up. Two legends trading bars and philosophy like poets and gangsters at once. Snoop called Pac his critic, fan, and brother, the one who kept him sharp without ego. They joked about power, hustlers, and legacy, even predicted that their video would define 1996. They were right. But neither could have imagined the tragedy that was coming next. By mid-1996, hip-hop had turned into a war zone. Death Row and Bad Boy weren't just labels anymore. They were flags in a cultural battlefield. And right in the middle of it were two brothers who suddenly found themselves on opposite sides of loyalty and survival. To understand their fallout, you have to understand where Tupac's head was at. Fresh out of prison, betrayed and scarred by the East Coast drama, he demanded total loyalty. To him, if you weren't with him, you were against him. But Snoop? He wasn't built for that kind of war. He'd seen enough violence. He wanted peace, business, family. The breaking point came during a New York radio interview when Snoop called Biggie and Puff my homeboys. To the world, it sounded mature, bridging gaps. But to Pac, still bleeding from betrayal, it sounded like treason. You have to remember, Pac had fed Snoop's son, guided him, defended him in court. So when Snoop didn't show that same energy when Pac needed him most, the wound cut deep. This wasn't just rap beef. It was heartbreak between brothers.
Even when he played Hit 'Em Up the song, I didn't like the song.
Did you feel like it was
I didn't
too
like
much?
it.
Right.
I didn't like it.
This clip reveals something crucial about Snoop's mindset during this period. He understood that Tupac's aggressive stance embodied in the infamous diss track, Hit 'Em Up, was inviting more trouble than they could handle. Snoop recognized that gangsters existed everywhere, not just in their circle, and that adopting an attitude of invincibility was dangerous, potentially deadly. But Tupac couldn't see it that way. He confronted Snoop on a private flight, and what happened next is one of the most painful moments in their entire relationship.
Because my didn't say nothing to me the whole ride. And that's a 5-hour flight on a private plane.
Yeah.
So I walk up to him like maybe 3 hours into the flight, sit next to him like, you going to Vegas, cuz? And he turned on me like this, start talking to somebody else. So I'm like, all right. So I go in the back, put the blanket on my head, knife in my hand, fork in my hand.
Let that sink in for a second. 5 long hours on a private jet, and Tupac didn't say a single word to Snoop. Imagine the silence. The weight in that cabin, the confusion, the heartbreak. Snoop had gone from being Tupac's right-hand man, his brother, to being treated like a stranger. And the fact that Snoop felt the need to carry knives on that flight? That tells you just how real the tension was, how unpredictable things had become inside the Death Row family. But as with everything in hip-hop history, the truth isn't simple. Members of Tupac's crew, like Napoleon from the Outlaws, later claimed that Snoop was jealous, that he resented how quickly Tupac took center stage at Death Row, outshining him almost overnight. Even Suge Knight would go on to suggest that Snoop and Dre's envy of Tupac was one of the cracks that eventually broke the empire. Now, was any of that true? Well, that depends on who you ask. Before Pac joined Death Row, Snoop was the golden child, the label's superstar after Doggy Style exploded. But when Tupac walked through those doors, everything changed. His energy, his fire, his activism, it made him larger than life. And suddenly, Snoop's calm, laid-back approach looked almost out of place. Tupac reportedly began calling him a studio gangster, a man tough on records, but not ready for the real heat. Those words would echo years later on Against All Odds, and on social media today, you'll still find people saying Tupac was right, that Snoop was never built for war. But here's the question nobody asks. Was Snoop's caution cowardice? Or was it survival? Was he disloyal? Or simply wise enough to step back from a game that was already claiming lives? Snoop had a newborn at home, a wife who loved him, and a future beyond the chaos. Tupac, meanwhile, was running on pure adrenaline, shaped by trauma, anger, and a belief that the end was already written. Their paths were diverging, fast dot, and that final rejection said it all. When Snoop invited Pac to come to Vegas for the Tyson fight, the same night that would end in tragedy, Pac looked him dead in the eye and said, "Nah, I'm good." Cold, final, a door closing between brothers who had once shared everything. But here's where it gets wild, where new evidence flips the story on its head. Because recently unearthed MTV footage from just 3 days before Tupac's death shows something completely different. Not anger, not betrayal, but two men caught between loyalty, love, and a world that refused to let them be both.
We're going to make it specific as to what you can talk about and what you can't talk about. And the East Coast, West Coast thing is something that the journalists and people are making just to get paid off this so it can drag out. So they're perpetuating it so it could be drama.
Listen closely to what Tupac says here. He's pointing out how the media fueled the East-West rivalry just to cash in on the chaos, stirring tension that didn't even need to exist. But here's the part that hits hardest. Sitting right beside him during that very interview was Snoop Dogg.
You know.
If it did exist, Pac, we wouldn't be here. So
Right, and if it exists, how we gonna be sitting in New York talking about it? We'll try to be better role models, and y'all try to stop putting that drama out there. You got a lot of power, a lot of responsibility. We both do. We both need to exercise greater restraint.
This footage is absolutely vital because it proves that even in those final days, communication between Tupac and Snoop Dogg hadn't completely broken down. They were still showing up together, still sharing stages and interviews. Tupac was even speaking about their shared duty as voices for a generation. This wasn't a picture of a friendship turned to ashes, like the media's been selling us for. Years dot, but then comes the most chilling clip of all. July 4th, 1996, Tupac's final live performance at the House of Blues in West Hollywood. What was meant to be a charity show for the Beverly Hills Teen Choice Awards became his swan song. The last time the world would ever see him command a stage, the energy that night was electric. The venue glowed in deep purples and blues as pyrotechnics lit the crowd of 500 on fire. Tupac, shirtless in white pants, moved like a storm, leaping, shouting, drenched in sweat. Every lyric carrying the weight of prophecy. And then, out of the smoke, Snoop Dogg appears. Baggy jeans, marching jacket, that signature West Coast swagger. Together, they launch into two of America's most wanted. The chemistry? Flawless, the energy? Unmatched. You can see it in every glance, every grin, every verse they trade. Tupac daps Snoop mid-bar, and they laugh like brothers. Whatever tension had existed, at least for those few minutes, it melted away under the lights. That performance has since been called hip-hop's Last Supper, a snapshot of two icons at their peak. still united by music even as the world tried to tear them apart. The clip has now passed over 100 million views online, with fans calling it the purest moment of West Coast unity ever caught on camera. And then, fate stepped in. Warren G later revealed that a last-minute stop by his house kept Snoop in LA on the night of September 7, 1996, the night Tupac was shot in Las Vegas. A random twist of fate that may have saved his life. For years, people have spun that into theories and conspiracies. But maybe the truth is simpler and sadder. Snoop wasn't there because the bond, while not broken, had been scarred. The world around them had become too heavy, too political, too dangerous. So what remains now is legacy, brotherhood, and a truth that time still hasn't erased. Because when Snoop got that phone call on September 7th, the world he knew, the brotherhood they built, stopped cold.
I think we was playing a video game, and we kept getting a whole bunch of calls and pages. Somebody told us to turn on the news, and we turned the news on, and we seen the little shit.
When Snoop saw the news, his heart dropped. Without thinking twice, he caught the next flight to Vegas, desperate, praying that somehow Tupac would survive this, just like he always did. But what waited for him in that hospital room wasn't hope. It was heartbreak. A sight that would stay with him for the rest of his life?
Right after I heard Tupac got shot, I immediately flew to Vegas, and I walked in the room and I seen him laid out on the bed with all kind of tubes and shit in him, and I was so weak I damn near fell over. And his mom came over to me and she grabbed me, and she held me up and she said, "Baby, you got to be strong." And I went and sat next to him and was whispering to him, telling him I loved him and to hold on and he was gonna be okay.
That moment, Snoop holding Tupac's hand, whispering his last words, feeling a connection deeper than words. That's where the truth of their bond truly lives. Not in the arguments, not in the silence on that plane, not in the rumors or diss tracks. The real story lives right there, in that hospital room, in the unspoken love between two brothers who, despite everything, never stopped caring for each other. 6 days later, on September 13, 1996, Tupac Shakur was gone, just 25 years old. And ever since that day, Snoop has carried that loss along with all the confusion, regret, and love tied to it. But here's what the newly resurfaced footage and Snoop's later reflections make clear. No matter the tension, no matter the distance, their bond was real. Snoop has spent nearly 3 decades proving it, not through words but through legacy. In 2017, when he inducted Tupac into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, his voice cracked with emotion. It wasn't just a speech, it was closure, it was confession, it was love that never died.
When I sat down to gather my thoughts about my label mate, my homie, and my brother, there's one thought that kept coming back to me. Tupac, the actual human being. And while many remember him now as some kind of thugged out superhero, Tupac knew he was only human. And he represented through his music like no one before. It's a fact that he never shied away from. He wore it like a badge of honor.
Snoop has often said that Tupac's influence on him was deeper than most people realize. To Snoop, Tupac wasn't just a collaborator, he was a mirror showing him what he could become. Tupac saw a level of greatness in Snoop that Snoop himself hadn't fully recognized. And what impressed him most wasn't just Tupac's talent, it was his relentless work ethic, his obsession with purpose. Snoop calls it one of the greatest lessons he ever learned. That passion means nothing without discipline.
See, that's the thing with Pac. When he loves hard. Whether that was him loving black people, him loving his homies, him loving his record label, and of course him loving his beautiful and incredibly strong mother, the late Afeni Shakur.
Their digital reunion at Coachella 2012 left the world in shock. Snoop Dogg on stage, performing 2 of America's most wanted beside Tupac's hologram. It wasn't just a concert, it was a resurrection. A moment that felt both futuristic and heartbreaking. Fans had waited 16 long years to see those two share the stage again. And for a few minutes, it felt like time itself stood still, even today. Snoop continues to carry Tupac's lessons with him in interviews, in how he moves, even in how he loves. He credits Tupac for shaping his mindset, for teaching him about loyalty, hard work, and the kind of man he wanted to become, not just as an artist, but as a father and husband. His lasting marriage to Shant is living proof of that influence, a quiet echo of Tupac's wisdom still guiding him decades later. So, what does all this newly surfaced footage really show us? What truth hides between the frames, one that challenges everything we thought we knew? It shows us that Tupac and Snoop weren't just collaborators. They were reflections of each other, two forces who clashed, learned, and loved in ways the world could never fully understand. Yes, Tupac is still gone. Yes, the rift between them was real. But this new light reveals something far more powerful, that even when the world tried to divide them, the love between these two brothers never truly broke. Their chemistry was magic, their music immortal. And their story, now clearer than ever, reminds us that even through conflict, pain, and loss, real brotherhood never dies. But what do you think? Did their rift run deeper than we were ever told? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you're ready for another untold story, click the next video on your screen.